In order to do that, just want to give everybody a heads up. There are a couple of quizzes that we have created over at Work It Daily. They're totally free for you to take, but both of them will help you in determining your blind spots. So if you've never taken our communication style quiz or our workplace persona quiz, they're very easy to do. Again, they're showing you the links right now. Pop on over, take those quizzes, whether you take them now or after the session. They will be foundational in you understanding your blind spots and how to address them, okay? Excellent. All right. So I'm going to get right down to it because we've got a lot to cover. So when we talk about identifying your professional blind spots, I thought it made sense to start by talking about the definition. So I went and looked up the definition, and very simply it says it's an area where a person's view is obstructed. And you're thinking, woo, mind-blowing, JT. But the thing is that a lot of us think we have a good handle on, who we are and what we're about and our strengths and our weaknesses. But I, as a career coach, and I've been doing this for a lot of years, see every single day people who I can't believe are missing a major blind spot in either their personality or a way that they approach work. And, when we start to talk about it and bring it to their attention, this light bulb goes off and they say, oh my gosh, I've been frustrated for so long. And I never understood what it was. And now you're showing me that it's me. And so at first, I think it stings a little when you really don't recognize that you've been blinded to something that's working against you. But once you get over that initial sting or that realization, and you don't automatically, have that reaction, that ego reaction, you can put your ego aside and take a deep breath and say, hey, nobody's perfect. And our strengths create our weaknesses. And this is an opportunity to work and have breakthrough. That's, I think, the most important thing that you can do today is that if you can just understand that you may not like what you find out about yourself or what your blind spots might be, but guess what? If you know what they are, you can do something about them. And that's where the real career growth comes from, especially if you've ever felt like you're struggling in your career and having problems. So, with that in mind, what I thought I would do today is give you a little questionnaire to take. And I'm going to have everybody go through it right now and just answer very simply yes or no. And what I would say is, every time you make a column right now, if you've got a piece of paper, and just tick them down so that you can see when you're done how many you have in the yes column and how many you have in the no column, okay? But here is a really simple test to tell you if you probably have some blind spots that you're not addressing. So the first question is, are you often surprised by people's reactions to you? So for example, do you say something at work or do you do something and you are genuinely shocked that people aren't, whether it's appreciative or understanding or cooperative, like the reaction you're getting from people is just not what you wanted. And it seems to happen more than it doesn't happen, right? It just seems to go, gosh, this happens on a pretty regular basis. I'm not really getting the reaction I was looking for. And the second one, do you sense that people are reserved or careful when talking with you? Do you ever feel like people are walking on eggshells around you, or they're saying, maybe very few words to you because they don't want to get into a bigger conversation? And you can just sense, you can tell that they're really being guarded when they talk with you. Yes or no? Okay, and the third one is, have you ever been told that you tend to be more negative than other people? So has it ever been pointed out to you that you're taking a negative point of view in a situation? Maybe that, you're being a bit difficult in this situation. And anytime people have literally called out the fact that they feel like to some degree you're not being fair or realistic, and that it's really skewing towards that negative side. Number 4, are you often feeling sick or off at work and you let people know about it? So do you find yourself really not feeling 100% and you're telling people, yeah, I'm just not feeling right today. I'm feeling off today. And it's not once or twice a year. It's maybe happening once a week, maybe more than once a week, where you're just not feeling 100% and you're letting everyone know. Number 5, do you blame a lot of external factors for your challenges and setbacks? Now, this is a big one. When you think about your career and history and work and the things that haven't happened for you, or maybe you haven't been able to get things to go your way, do you find yourself often blaming other people or other circumstances? Are there just, in your opinion, a lot of external factors that have made it impossible for you to get where you want to go? Yes or no? Next one, do you struggle to make career choices that lead to good outcomes? This is a big one. Are you one of those people that can look back, because we all have a career story, right? It's an interpretation of our events of our professional lives. When you tell your career story to yourself, when you map it out, do you find yourself saying, and then I made this mistake here, and then I made this choice and it turned out to be a bad choice, and I made this choice and it turned out to be a bad choice? If there seems to be more bad choices than good choices, yes or no? Next one, do you ever feel like coworkers are showing fake enthusiasm around you? So opposite of that, being careful to talk around you, do you find that people are kind of, fake happy, or just always telling you everything's fine or good, and that, they love all your ideas and everything's perfect? And you can just tell, you can tell that they're not being authentic or real with you. Next one, do you struggle to develop friendships at work? You're at work, you're paid to do a job, but it's very important that you be able to collaborate with other people at work. And that requires building trust and respect in the form of a professional friendship. So do you have a lot of colleagues that you feel you can trust and talk to, that come to you, that, like spending time with you, even, are they the ones that sit with you at the events and invite you to events outside work? Again, just that collegial, I hope I'm saying that right. It's probably not even the right word, but that feeling that we have a connection, and that through that connection, we would really help each other out on the job. And then lastly, do you feel insecure or less intelligent than your peers? Do you find yourself always feeling a bit threatened that, other people are smarter than you or have more experience than you, seem to be in a better position than you? Maybe you think they play the office politics better than you. Just all in all, you feel like everyone around you is doing better than you at work, or has it better than you at work. Is that the case there? Say yes or no. Okay, so let's count those up, right? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 questions. How many did you have in the yes column? How many did you have in the no column? And I'll tell you, folks, that you should really pay close attention to any of the questions where you answered yes. Because if you answered yes, then you are probably dealing with a blind spot. So if you had all no's, and wow, you're in good shape, you're off the hook, you don't need to stay with us for the rest of today's session. But if you answered yes to even one of these today, there's a really good chance that you have got a blind spot going on. So we're going to talk about how you might start to identify those blind spots and do something with them, right? Use them to your advantage by recognizing them and trying to fix them or do something to combat them, whatever it takes. Okay? All right. So the first thing I want to talk about, the first area that we want to dive into when we're looking for blind spots, is our communication style. And this is the first quiz that we shared with you here today. There are 4 main styles in this quiz. There is the commander, the contemplator, the energizer, and the empathizer. And this test that you take really talks about your facial expressions, your body language, the tone and pace of the way that you speak, how expressive you are, and also, just how direct you are. And so there's really 2 axes, that whole style, that helps you fall into one of these. And everyone, you can be a little bit of each of them, by the way, and you might find yourself shifting depending on who you're with. But usually at work, we end up a predominant style. There's one style that rises above all the others, which means, as I said earlier, strengths create weaknesses. It can create an opportunity for blind spots if we don't understand that. And I'm going to give you an example. Now, for all of you that take the quiz, by the way, you will see not only the strengths, you'll see a graphic like this that shows you the strengths of each style. And there's lots of information and videos that you'll get if you take this quiz. But this is another graphic that we show you, which is the weaknesses, or how this style gets misperceived. And I can't tell you how many people I've worked with over the years who had never taken a test like this. Maybe they've taken, Myers-Briggs, which I find very complex, too complex, honestly. I think I like the simplicity of this particular quiz, but they never really stepped back and thought about, okay, my style is one of 4 styles, which means at any given time, 75% of the people that I could be working with may not have the style that I have, maybe higher or lower, depending on who they are. And they could very well misinterpret me, or my style could actually hold me back from succeeding. And so we look at these 2 areas. So first of all, we look at how much of how at this pace that they work at, I guess is the best way to state that. On the one extremes, there's the procrastinators, and on the other extremes, there's the pushers. So an empathizer is going to tend to procrastinate more, meaning they're not going to want to rush in and do things, especially things that make them uncomfortable. So having difficult conversations with people, having to give bad news, right? Having to be the heavy or the critical person. They don't enjoy that, because as you can see on the other axis, when we talk about tactfulness, they're pleasers. They like to make people happy and feel good about themselves because they are empathetic individuals. They can put themselves in other people's shoes and they care for people. So you can see that empathizers from time to time will not realize that in their kindest, best effort to be understanding and, help people, that they can be taking too much time. And that candidly, they could be avoiding telling people what they need to hear, which means sometimes empathizers can be seen as inauthentic and even as fibbers. And I know if anybody on here is hearing this, they get really defensive when they hear that, because again, they're empathizers. They're such wonderfully sensitive people. But that sensitivity can work against you. You can be seen as too sensitive in the workplace, which is making other people uncomfortable because they're not as sensitive as you, right? And so they're not enjoying all that extra emotion that you're bringing. They can feel like all you want to do is make people say yes to people. So you're not being really truthful. You're not telling the truth. You're telling white lies. They can feel like you are talking behind people's backs because you tend to not tell people directly what you're thinking about them, but you really want to go vent. So you talk about it with other people, right? And they can feel like you're dragging your heels and not being timely in situations that are stressful, where maybe things need to be pushed forward, even if it's uncomfortable. So again, can we see how perhaps our communication style for an empathizer can create blind spots for us in terms of communicating and working with our teammates? Now let's stay on that same side of procrastination with the contemplators. The key difference between contemplators and empathizers is that contemplators tend to be real planners. So they show a lot less emotion, but they do tend to avoid things. It doesn't mean they feel less emotion. Contemplators are very sensitive individuals. They think a lot. They care a lot. They get bogged down in the thoughts. So it slows them down. And they really like to get things right. So in their mind, they would rather wait to get something right than to rush through a decision. Well, in certain situations, that's not ideal. You need somebody to speak up and to, do things quickly, maybe even if they don't come out 100% perfectly. So that's going to be very uncomfortable for a contemplator. The other thing that happens with contemplators, and they're always shocked to hear this, is that people can assume they are aloof and sometimes even snobby, even though that's the furthest thing from the truth. But their lack of emotion and lack of facial expressions in times where others are expecting a little more emotion can really work against them. Now, let's stay with the contemplators and the commanders in the sense that they both are planners. So they both like to have things, all buttoned up, right and correct. They like facts and numbers in order to get things right. The difference is commanders work at a fast pace. They want fast results, and they don't mind, stepping on toes to get there. In their mind, the goal is to get the answer, the right answer, fix the problem, do it as quickly as possible because that's what we're paid to do. So let's get it done. So that intensity of a commander, especially in stressful situations, can be very off-putting. So if you've ever been told that you're very negative, you're very direct, you're very intense, that you're difficult to negotiate or have conversations with, it's very possible that your commander style is so intense that it is off-putting and creating situations where people maybe don't want to invite you to things, they don't want to include you in things because of just the uncomfortable feeling that you create for people with your intensity. And then lastly, we have the energizers who, like the commanders, are pushers. They have that high energy. They like to go. But unlike the commanders and more like the empathizers, they like to please. They like to make people happy. So there's very high energy. They're very intense. They're very, very passionate, right? They're usually the cheerleader, the team captain type. And so when they are, in a stressful situation, that push can be too much for people. Not everybody wants to be pushed that way. Not everybody wants that fast-paced energy. Energizers are pretty quick-witted, but also when they're unhappy, everybody knows it. And so it can be a situation where people will be fake happy around them just to appease them because they're afraid of what will happen if they're their real selves around them, right? So they just try to be fake happy or do whatever they say. And that doesn't sit well with them either, which means you could be getting, if you're an energizer, you could have a lot of people just saying yes to you and yesing you to death, when in reality, what you need to hear is no. And this could be a big blind spot for you because of just how pushy your intensity comes across. People just feel overwhelmed and they can't compete with it. And so they acquiesce, they give up, and they say, okay. So again, this is just a little bit of an overview to help you all understand that each of us has a style. And those styles in certain situations could absolutely create a communication blind spot that will hurt you and not help you move forward in what you're trying to accomplish. So one of the best techniques you can have to dealing with this is not only taking the quiz and understanding what you are, but thinking about what those other styles need in stressful situations and trying to flex your style. So recognize and tone back your style and say, all right, there's other styles in the room. What can I do to be aware of who has those styles and how they need to be communicated with in order for them to feel comfortable? And I will tell you that the more gifted you get at this, and it's really just practicing, but the more gifted you get at this, reading a room, understanding different personalities and flexing your style, you will remove those blind spots and the results you get are amazing. Such a big part of being successful on the job is being able to connect with multiple types of people, right? They always talk about being a fit for the corporate culture. Well, a piece of that is just being able to integrate and connect with all different types of personalities. And that's why knowing how to do something like this so that you minimize your own blind spot, but also can play up to others, is very important. All right, so that's one aspect. Now, the second area that you want to think about when you think about that whole checklist I gave you that could indicate you have some blind spots is your approach to work. And this is a second quiz that we provide called the Workplace Persona Quiz. If you have never taken our quiz before, what it's going to tell you are your dominant styles. So basically, you take this test, and at the end, it will tell you, what percentage each style is. Now, if you get 25%, that's the highest amount you could score on any one of these. So if you got a 25%, that score is pretty high. 20% or higher means it's a strength of yours. 15% is average. 10 and 5% and 0 are low. So usually we're saying to you, look at your top 2 or 3 strengths, your highest scoring workplace personas. This is how you like to contribute on the job. This is how you like to do work and feel value, that you're creating value, how you like to execute tasks. And it's important to know that so that you can choose jobs that really play to your workplace strengths. But you can also take this quiz and do the opposite with it, which is, where did you score low? Because wherever you scored low is where your potential blind spot is. So for example, let's say you are a really strong super connector and educator. So you love, super connector and educators are people who love to teach. They love to present, right, to groups of people. They love to help groups of people learn and understand things. So they get very excited. They're very animated for good reason to hold attention. But let's say you score very low, like a 0 or 5% on research. Well, that means you don't like to do the due diligence, go and find the facts and the figures and the numbers and the information. You don't like to get bogged down in the details. And so what can happen is that you might not do very well. If there was a project that involved you having to get up and present and speak, you might be great at that, but you may not be so great at doing the research and putting together the actual presentation that goes with actually speaking. And so that could work against you. People could be like, well, wow, she's so wonderful when she gets up and talks, but she hasn't done any of this homework and she doesn't have any good data or knowledge behind her because she didn't do the homework. She just sort of seems to be saying it off the cuff. And how do we trust that? How do we know that she's correct? Or even worse, what if you say something out of turn? What if you say something and it's not true, and it's because you didn't do your homework, you didn't do the research part of it? So looking at your areas of weaknesses, this becomes really, really big. Like if you're not a strong mentor, then that says that you're not good at developing people. So if you're in some kind of position where you're supposed to develop people and help them get stronger in their skill sets, that could be a blind spot for you. I already mentioned researcher. What about warriors? Warriors are people who are very committed and very loyal and will do what needs to be done for the sake of the organization. If you have a low level of loyalty, that's going to come through, and people are going to know that, if something better came along, you would take it. And therefore, they may not trust you with certain things because of that fear, because you don't have that loyalty card. Super connector, I mentioned that they're very outgoing. They love talking to people, helping people make meaningful connections. Challenge there is that they're not going to be good when they have to do work by themselves. They don't like to be individual contributors. They don't like to have to just be in a corner by themselves. Any kind of work like that is going to show that a super connector is not very strong at it. Going down to educator, again, you like to also, similar to the super connector, but different in the sense that you like to give people information and make sure that they close their gap in knowledge on something, which is fantastic, but you may not be all that sensitive in your passion to coach the people and give them the information they need. You may not be very aware of how they like to learn or how they take in information, and maybe push a little too hard as you're trying to teach people as opposed to letting them go at their own pace. Builders, they're all about creating things. They just want to go, go, go. They want to turn, nothing into something. They want to take the blueprint. They want to run with it. So sometimes people find builders very stressful because they're all about, what do we get done? Let's do the next thing. Let's move on. Let's move on. And some people don't want to work at that fast a pace. Optimizers, they like to make things perfect. So they're always going in and looking for what's broken. So even after something gets fixed, they're already moving on. They're not even celebrating the fix. They're looking at what's broken next. And they become really kind of downers in the sense that in their effort to constantly make things better, all they seem to be doing is pointing out what's wrong. They don't realize it though, because they're fixing. But again, that negativity comes through. And then lastly, visionaries. These are people who can see the future. They can connect the dots. They understand what something is going to look like. They get very impatient. Visionaries get impatient because they can see the future and see these ideas, they assume everybody can. And so they'll get really frustrated with people who ask a lot of questions or can't seem to see it the way they're explaining it because it just feels so real to them. Whereas for everybody else, they're completely confused, right? So again, if you take the quiz, it's going to provide you a lot more information than what I'm sharing with you here today. But at least I gave you an idea of how each of these things, when they're a weakness, when they're not a strong suit, or they are strong and they create your weakness, you can see the problems that come up from that. So it's very important you understand what your strengths are in terms of workplace personas and how those might be seen as weaknesses. And on the flip side, if you don't have those things, how they can work against you as well. Hopefully that made sense to a lot of people. Lots to dive in there for sure. All right. So with that in mind, because then I want to get right down to questions today. Lots of good questions, I hope. I'm going to give you 2 tips like I always do. Tip number 1, ask people to guess your styles. If you really want to get a sense of how people see you, instead of telling them, your communication style or your workplace personas, show them the 4 styles and the definitions, which again, you'll get if you opt in, and show them and say, what do you think I am? What do you think my predominant communication style is? And which one of these do you think I am? The 2 or 3 key skill sets do you think I have? Don't give them the negative descriptions. Just give them the positive ones. And that way they'll be more inclined to go, oh, I think that's you, or I think these things are you. Then take that and step back and say, I wonder how those things could work against me. And you can even ask, once your colleagues guess your styles for you, you can even ask them, have you ever seen these? If these are my strengths, have you ever seen them work against me? Because all strengths have weaknesses. Remember what I said in the beginning of today's session. The hardest part for people is the initial sting. When somebody tells you a strength of yours, something you've worked so hard on can actually work against you. But now you know. So you should be prepared and you should say to your colleague, look, this is going to help me grow and identify blind spots. I really want to identify some blind spots. So, if this is my strength, if I'm a commander, what do you think how can that work against me? What do you think might be the challenges? Or if I'm a visionary, what might be the challenges? Talk with people. It's very hard for us to see it in ourselves, but usually when we've worked with other people, they can see it and you're inviting them to give you that feedback as a way for you to improve. And then the second thing I'll tell you is looking for patterns in your professional frustrations. So in the very beginning today, I gave you a quiz and I asked you to say yes. If you said yes to any of these things, then you probably have a blind spot. Another way to do that is to really sit down and say, where do I feel like I've had the same bad thing happen over and over in my career? I'll give you an example of one that I hear a lot from people. So I will have people come to me and say, I take a job and I'm so excited about it and I'm completely in love with it. And then within 6 months, I hate it. And I don't know how I keep picking these wrong companies. And I get there and it turns out the people aren't like what I thought and the work isn't like what I thought. And I just don't know what I'm doing wrong. Right? Well, usually when I have one of these people and they're that adamant and they're that intense, they tend to be, from a communication standpoint, either an empathizer or an energizer. And the reason for that is the empathizers, once it starts to get tough or hard or difficult, it's not fun anymore. And, they're a very compassionate people. And so they don't like the discomfort. Or if they're an energizer, maybe they just thought it was really interesting, but once they learned everything and it's not constantly going at a fast pace and they're not moving ahead, and getting promoted every 3 months, they get bored and they get frustrated. I've also seen it in commanders who get there and they want everything to be right. And when people challenge them, or when they feel like the company isn't making smart decisions, they feel like they know it all and they can't possibly be at a company where, it doesn't have all the right answers and isn't perfect like them. You know what I mean? And then I can have contemplators who get there and even though they're frustrated, they tend not to change their jobs as often, but they might say, oh, this place just, it's not well organized and it's not well run and they're always changing gears and they're, never taking the time to do things right. You see what I mean? So if you have frustrations like that, you need to take it a step further and ask yourself, what's causing that frustration? And is it possible that my communication style or my, preferred ways to work are the reasons that I'm suddenly getting disenchanted so quickly? That's the kind of self-discovery that's going to help you correct things, because the truth is nobody's going to do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. And so it can hurt and it can be hard, but it's the only way to get ahead. And if you talk to any person that's had really incredible professional success and is very happy in their careers, they'll tell you one of the things that they did was specifically look for their blind spots. And so with that, I just want to remind you of an equation that we teach you all the time at Work It Daily, which is experience plus learns equals grow. There's a reason for that. If you are willing to go out and have these new experiences and look for places where you are blind, you will learn and you will grow. And this is what ultimate career satisfaction is about, constantly growing. A lot of people don't. They get to a certain level in their career and they stop looking for ways to improve. They start looking for ways to evolve and get better and move in new directions. They plateau. And the moment you plateau, you're in trouble, because as my late father used to say, JT, if it's not growing, it's dying. And that applies to business, careers, whatever it is, And so you have to remember that. You need to be growing or you're sliding backwards. And so blind spots can be a wonderful area for self-improvement in order to make a real impact in your career. Okay? Awesome. All right. So we're going to come back and take some questions now. I hope I have some good questions here today. Don't forget to take those 2 quizzes so that you can start to identify your blind spots. And I know the team is posting those for you now. So first question is from YouTube, and Yellow Brick Expat says, one of my biggest problems at work is the imposter syndrome. I tend to question the authenticity of good reviews and optimism from my superiors. Any tips? I'm in 30 and in education. So that's really fascinating. So for those of you, I think everybody knows what imposter syndrome is, but in case you don't, it's when you feel like you really don't deserve to be there. You feel like a liar. You don't think that you are as worthy as the other people around you. So that imposter syndrome historically comes from feelings of inadequacy when we were younger. So usually somebody pretty influential in our life was a constant critic. And it was somebody that we had huge respect for. So over time, anytime people just give us a compliment or say nice things, we assume that that can't be real because we were trained to look for the critic, right? And so that's where that comes from. And it can be very hard for people to get used to taking compliments. What I love to do to combat imposter syndrome is get factual. So what do I mean by factual? Well, I write down the numbers. So if somebody gives me a compliment, I ask myself, what are the numbers? What are the facts that are making that person give me that compliment? So let's say you did an outstanding job on that presentation. What you can do is turn around and say, thank you so much. What did you specifically like about it? Why did you think it was effective? Whenever you get a compliment and you fear imposter syndrome, you owe it to yourself to ask for facts. So just say to them, thank you so much. What did you like about it specifically? Why did you think that it was good? And then you can even say, do you think there was some area I could improve? Because that's what you're used to. And all of a sudden, that becomes a dialogue where one, you get the facts about what made it good, and that will give you more trust and belief that they really meant the compliment and that it's correct, because you could say, hey, those are the facts, right? But also it gives you a chance to ask, well, what else could I do to improve? Which will make you feel better, because then how can you be an imposter if you're open to feedback, right? So little imposter syndrome technique there. Validate, ask why they're giving you the compliment, what specifically is making them give you the compliment, and then ask if they can give you any additional feedback for improvement. And I guarantee you your imposter syndrome will go away. All right, Nancy from YouTube is saying, so which one is the workplace bully? That's so funny. You know, there's no one style that's a workplace bully. The reality is it's two opposing styles that create a bully environment. So you might have a commander who's very fact-driven, number-driven. Hey, I'm paid to do a job. I come in, I do my job, and I leave. And you could have an empathizer who is very in tune with other people's feelings, is a very sensitive person, and feels that the commander's approach is bullying because they're not being sympathetic or understanding. That could be one way. On the flip side, you can have an energizer who's always upbeat, intense, let's keep it going, let's moving. And you could have a contemplator who goes at a slower pace and feels like the energizer is a bully because they don't ever slow down. So it really depends on the dynamic. Bullying is a combination of polar opposite styles. And usually the dominant style is saying, look, I'm not going to see it your way. I'm going to do it my way. So they're not willing to flex their style. And that's what's creating that dynamic. Deborah over on LinkedIn says, when you indicate you would rather work by yourself, do employers look at this as a negative? No, not if the job is an individual contributor role. They love it because it means you like to work by yourself and not get distracted, and you don't need to talk to other people all day. It's really about the actual job you're applying for. Now, if you were to say you like to work alone, but this is a job that's team-based where you need to be in touch with people all day long and having conversations, they're probably not going to want you for this role. But if it's a role where they need you to have your head down, working at your desk and just banging things out uninterrupted, then they're going to love that you say that. It absolutely depends on the particular question. So again, this is why you want to think through the situation and think about what really matches there. It'll make a huge difference for sure. Let's see. So next question we have here is from Haley over on LinkedIn. My top personas are educator, visionary, and mentor. I am currently in a role where I train and develop all new and existing managers. Oh, that seems like a very good fit. Considering that the managers I train have different personas, how can I quickly identify their personas to ensure that I'm helping them effectively? Well, Haley, the easiest thing would be to have them take the quiz. It's free and easy for them to do. And they could tell you what their top three are, and then you could adapt accordingly. Because as an educator, visionary mentor, you are in tune with the fact that there's different styles, but you tend to think big picture. And you may have some people that are a lot more, they like a more granular approach. They like a more logical or more detailed and a slower approach. So for your combination, it would be wise for you to have everyone take the test, and then say for those people that are more researchers or builders, those individuals, you want to make sure that you're adapting accordingly. Really, really important. Excellent. Next question over on LinkedIn is from Phyllis. How do you specifically find roles and teams where your persona is a good match? So it really comes down to the job description. And this is what we do all the time with our Work It Daily members. Once you know what your personas are, you can look at a job description and figure out if it's a match. So for example, let's say you're going for a project management role, and they say that you're going to be given a blueprint and it's up to you to roll everything out and be resourceful and come up with milestones and finish it on time. Well, if your builder is your strong suit, then this is perfect for you. But if super connector is your strong suit and builder is on the low side, that's not going to be a good fit for you. You might like talking to people as part of the project management role, but your lack of attention to detail and being able to create and build things would be a real negative. So it all comes down to the job description and looking at the tasks that need to be executed and then saying, all right, each of those tasks can be assigned to one of these 8 workplace personas. Where do the majority of the tasks lie? And do the majority of tasks align with my top personas? If it does, then it's a good match. And then, of course, as you're in the interview itself, you'll be asking questions around that to validate that. But I tend to find the job description is a great place to start. Jamie over on YouTube says, I'm having a hard time determining if my job unhappiness currently is because of me or the job. Yeah, that's a really great question, Jamie. So anytime I have somebody who's feeling unhappy in their role, I think they weren't always unhappy. So the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what made you fall in love with the role? Why were you excited when you took it? And then why are you no longer excited? Why are those things no longer true? What went away? What changed? Something changed. Did the work change? Or did just as you got to know it, it wasn't what you thought it was? So you have to think about where the unhappiness is coming from. And then definitely you need to do some self-assessment, because what you're probably going to find is that the way you like to work is used very little. And the way you have to do most of your work is the way you hate to work. So a great example would be, if you are an energizer super connector and this job is really for a contemplator researcher, you're going to be miserable, because a contemplator researcher needs to be alone all day long looking at facts and figures and numbers, and you are an energizer super connector who needs to be out connecting. So that's why you have to look at these things and figure out if it's a match or not for the role. And again, whether it's you or the role, either way, you want to better align yourself with a role that plays to your strengths and your preferences. Carol on YouTube asks, how do empathizers get over the dislike of tough conversations so they become more proficient with them? That is a wonderful question. And you know what, Carol, I commend you for asking, because a lot of empathizers don't like to ask that question. So here's what I found. Empathizers need to know how to manage up. So you want to go to your manager and your peers and say, okay, I'm going on the offensive here. I'm going to tell you the deal. I'm a sensitive person. And, I can take things personally. So I really love it when I get feedback in this way. And so you want to give people a framework for giving you feedback so that you will take it. And I think that means you have to step back and ask yourself, how would you want that information? Because you certainly want to get better and you certainly want to do better. So what is the best way for people to give that to you and help you get over it as quickly as possible? That's the one thing. And so that kind of open communication can really make things so much better, especially if your manager knows that or your peers know that. They know how to approach you. It's okay to say, look, I'm going to be honest, folks. I'm an empathizer, which means I appreciate you all and I empathize with you all, but also, I can take things personally. So here's the best way to work with me. And then really thank people when they do follow that protocol, because it's a sign of they care about you. The one thing I'll tell you about difficult conversations that I think everyone needs to understand is that conflict brings resolution. When you finally step in and deal with something, if you keep at it, you can solve it and you can get over it and you can get to a better place. But the longer you avoid it, the longer it stays the way it is, or it gets worse. And so that can be motivation alone to say, you know what, I got to rip the Band-Aid off here, get in and start to have this conversation, because I don't want to stay like this anymore. I want to work through it together. And oh yeah, here's the framework that works best for me, right? So that's how I would do that. On LinkedIn, Ileana asks, how can I not be so frustrated when things are not going the way I expect, or when my knowledge feels like it is not okay? I feel that people don't care. Yeah, you know what? And Ileana, this is hard to hear, but you're right. We all care the most about ourselves and the things that we're dealing with. That is human beings, human nature, self-preservation. We are all focused on ourselves and our needs and our things first. And then we will, focus on other people. So one of the biggest mistakes that people make is setting too much expectations on others. So when you're frustrated that things aren't going the way you expect, it's because you set some expectations that those other people didn't agree to. They didn't buy into those expectations. Those are your expectations. And so again, you want them to care at a certain level, but they didn't buy into that. They didn't agree to care at that level. You're just expecting it of them. When we let go of expectations of other people and we set the expectations really low, almost non-existent, you will be pleasantly surprised at anything that you get. But it's even more reason to focus on yourself and say, it's my job to make myself happy. It's my job to get to that place and to really not expect much from other people and to be pleasantly surprised when I am. If you can adjust your expectations and understand that, it will make all the difference in the world. And really just focus on yourself. Say, this is up to me. If I want this happiness, if I want these to work, it's up to me. I can't expect it from anybody else. And, that was something I was taught really early on because I was such a sensitive person when I was younger, and my style evolved over time. And it evolved because the more I started to not expect things from other people, the more I did it for myself, the stronger I got, the less I did feel as sensitive because I got excited about the results and, moving things forward. So I encourage you to try that. Lower the expectations and focus on you being responsible for that happiness. All right. Question from Laura over on YouTube. It says, Maya Angelou said, people remember us based on how we made them feel. How much of this is related to cultural fit and contribution? If you qualify for a job, is this related to job success? So, Laura, I love this discussion. So first of all, Maya Angelou, I agree 100% with her. People remember us based on how we made them feel. But remembering us and respecting our work and what we got done are two different things. So I'm going to tell you a story. There was a gentleman who was hired for a very high C-level position, running a client success team. And he was such a sweet and kind person, kind of like an empathizer, contemplator combo. Just easygoing, always positive, always telling his team, you've got this, you're amazing, you don't need me, you're figuring this out yourself, kind of a mentor type in the sense that he never gave anybody the answers. And he also didn't have the industry background, but he had the customer service background. So in the beginning, everyone loved him. I mean, he never said an ill word to anyone. He was so pleasant to be around. And over time, he got fired. And he got fired because even though he made everyone feel lovely, that approach made everyone think, well, why is he even here? He's bringing no value to this situation. He's not solving difficult problems. He's not alleviating pain. He doesn't have any particular expertise that he's showcasing. He's just nice. He's absolutely nice, but we don't need nice here. We need results here. So Maya Angelou is correct. People remember how you make them feel, but that doesn't mean you're going to keep the job. And I think this is where a lot of people don't understand. And they say, but I'm a great fit for the culture. Everybody likes me. That's just one piece of it, folks. It's an important piece because if you are uncomfortable and not a good cultural fit, you're out the door. But even if you are a cultural fit, you still have to produce, and you have to produce in the way that the company needs you to produce. And that's why you have to pay a lot more attention to not just your communication style, but also your workplace personas and how you like to create work. All right, Kazuki over on YouTube is asking, how do we flex our styles to create a productive workplace? Well, the best way to flex your styles is to learn the other styles and recognize them in your peers and then do things to make them feel like you get them. So for example, energizers have high energy. They're very animated, smiles on their faces, hand gestures. Smile a bit more. Maybe you can't be as animated or talk as quickly, but a bigger smile on your face is going to basically flex to that energizer. Okay, I'm like you. Commanders, they're more to the point. So less chit chat, less small talk, more let's just get to the facts and move on. Contemplators, they just want you to slow down. Just let's have an opportunity to talk things through. Let's not rush things. And empathizers, ask them how their day is going. How are their kids? How are their family? Take a personal interest in them. Very small, simple things to do with each style that will make them feel like you get them and connect with them better. Elizabeth over on LinkedIn is asking, is there a way we can influence and persuade a commander to not be such a commander? Had an experience with a former boss like that, and she just didn't realize she was one and made life a bit harder. It's a great question. They are one of the hardest to change, Elizabeth. Commanders, there's a reason commanders generally run companies. It's because they get it done. They hold high standards. They work hard. They're intense individuals that get results. And, in business, that's what's needed. What you do and what I've done in the past is tend to show somebody on 3 levels how their style is hurting them. So first of all, we talk about, well, as an extreme commander, this is how it's negatively impacting the business, the company. That's one level. At the second level, this extreme commander, this is how you're impacting the team. And on the third level, as an extreme commander, this is how it's impacting you personally, your particular brand, professional presence. And so you really want to show them examples of how it's hurting them in their career, with their teammates, and at the company as a whole. And those three levels start to drive home the point to that individual that that extremity is working against them. And you have to give them really quantifiable examples. Did it lose business? Did it create a rift? Did it create a mistake? Did it, what are the things that are coming out of this person's excessively negative commander style that are hurting on all three of those levels? And that's, for me as a coach, that's what I'm pointing out when I'm working with our members, because we're always looking at that, especially, like in the executive group and executive presence, for that very reason. They're very visible people. Managers are very visible, and they need to know how to soften those edges in order to get the right results. Susan over on YouTube asked, should you mention these personality types in an interview? Yeah, so not directly. You don't want to go in and say, so I'm an energizer and I'm a super connector, visionary builder. It's not that. It's the activities. So what we have you do in Work It Daily, for example, is once you know what those styles are, you say, okay, what are the actions? What are the tasks and the accomplishments that I've had in my past that support that I'm a builder? Give me 3 examples of time when I was a visionary. Give me 3 examples of a time where I was a super connector. What were the results? How did it help the bottom line? How did it save or make the company money? How did it, how did it show that I was successful in the job? Those are the kinds of things you want to bring into the interview. And through those examples, the person listening will be able to deduce, oh, okay, so that person's good with people. Oh, that person's a good mentor. Oh, that person can build things. Through your examples, you will convey that. Right? So it's talking about the traits of these aspects and what they've gotten you, what they've helped you accomplish, not necessarily giving them the labels directly. Wonderful. All right, team. So listen, we're going to wrap it up for today, but I did want to do one quick announcement for all of you that are following. If you did not see it over the weekend, we tried to email everybody, let everybody know. We are raising our rates at Work It Daily, and we've had a sale going through Memorial Day that lets you lock in the rates at our $19.99 a month rate. I don't think a lot of people realize that. Literally, for $19.99 a month, you can join our program, work with our coaches, and get your resume redone, your LinkedIn profile, right? They'll help you, cover letter, your interview prep, your job search. But that is going up to $29.99 a month. We are growing and we need to hire more people and we need more resources. And while I wish that we were VC backed and full of money, we aren't. We're a small startup company that is growing through the support of our members. And so in order to expand our services, we're hiring more coaches, putting more resources in our platform to help more people with their job search. We do have to raise our rates by $10 a month. It's really not a lot, still less than $1 a day. And we are still the most affordable and effective career coaching anywhere. I will stake my name on it. You will get inside that program and you will be blown away at the support you get. But right now, through today, you still can get it for $19.99. So if you've ever thought about joining us, you can cancel at any time. There's no contracts, $19.99 a month. And you could today start working on your resume, LinkedIn profile, cover letter with our experts and get that help that you need. And if you're somebody right now in this time, a lot of people are saying, well, I'm just going to focus on that when companies are hiring again. That is not the time to start focusing on your job search. Now is the time to get help and make sure those things are ready, because there's going to be a massive hidden job market. Lots of people don't realize that we're not going to suddenly see a ton of jobs posted. It is going to take a very long time for that to return, but there will be jobs. They'll just be hidden and you need to know how to go after them. And that's what we teach you inside Work It Daily. That's what our coaches will help you with. So again, $19.99 through today, but then it's going to $29.99 per month. You've been warned. All right. Just want to make sure everybody knows that. So I know they're dropping the link in there in case you still want to get in and try it at the $19.99 a month rate. Okay, team? Awesome. All right. Well, listen, I'll be back on Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern. I hope you enjoyed today. Thank you so much. These sessions are only as good as the people that participate, and you all are phenomenal. You're such great participants. So I hope you come back again, bring your questions, because remember, if you want to win, you got to work it daily. You've got to grow your career. And the only person doing that is you, right? School teaches us everything except this stuff. But now you can come here on Tuesdays and Thursdays and hang out with me. Okay. All right. Thanks again, everyone. I hope we see you inside the Work It Daily platform soon. Take care. Bye-bye.